All right, I said there's a better way than using these procedural loops to answer these questions. Now, check this out. Let's change this here. Let's write some code that may be a little surprising to you unless you've seen it. So we'll say again, prices. And what we want to generate is a list of numbers. We wrote this code, which generated a new list. It's equivalent to saying list, like so. And then we iteratively looped over it. Down here, you can see we even added a test in our loop. Now, there's a concept that lets us write a more declarative style of code where the implementation actually handles the looping and all that for us. So we can come down here and write what looks like brackets where we're going to define a list, but we're going to put something different in there. We're going to put an expression. First line is always going to be the projection or items to create, something like this. So what do we want? We wanted the purchase.price here. Now, it's a little bit backwards because you have to imagine, all right, there's a variable P that I'm about to talk about, and it's going to be a purchase, so I want the price. And then the next thing down here is going to be the set to process, for lack of a better word. So down here we'll say for PN data. Yeah. So what we want is we want to go through all the data, grab out for every one of those. We're going to call it this P, and we're going to pull out the price. Now we could pull things like a tuple. I could say p.beds like that. And even like p.state. That's not going to be interesting. It's all the same state. Let's say city. Maybe we'll get something there. And this is probably going to crash, but I could just print prices. I think in this case, I need some parentheses. Yes, one of the rare cases where tuples need parentheses. And let's just say return so it doesn't actually crash. And notice we loop through here, and here's the price. Here's the number of beds. Here's the city. Price, beds, city, price, bed, city. So this is like a projection, kind of like if you're familiar with SQL queries and those kinds of things, that's what this is. But we just want one item, which is just the prices. So here you can see all the prices. And if you want to know what type that is, it's just a list. Class list, that's its values. So think about this for a minute. Before, what we did, we had to allocate the price, loop over each item, and then do some processing. Granted, this processing is very simple. It's just added to the list. So it's a little harder to see the value here. But here we can just declare an expression that will build the list. And it uses the same mechanism as the list here. Let's take this same idea and apply it in a more interesting scenario here. So here we have the same thing. And the last part that I hadn't shown you before is the test or condition. If you're familiar with databases, this would be like the where clause. So we could say if p.beds is 2. So now if I run this, we should get the same answer below, and we do exactly as we had before. But we don't need these tests. What we're really after is not just the average price of a 2-bedroom home. We also want to know the average number of bathrooms and maybe the average square footage. So this can get a little more interesting here. So we'll say the average price of a 2-bedroom home. Let me tighten this up a little bit. So we'll say the average 2-bedroom home is some price with a certain number of baths and a certain square footage. Now I put 0 here just so this will run. Here you can see we're still getting the same answers. Now, suppose I want to know this. Well, previously with this looping mechanism, I would have to come up with another list of, let's say, baths equals something like this. And down here, I'd have to also say baths.append per.baths and so on. With the conciseness of these lists here, we could do something like this. We could just say 2-bed homes like this. And let's come back here like so. And so what we'll get is a list of 2-bedroom homes. And then down here, we can say the average price is going to be the mean. Now, if we try to give it 2-bedroom homes, remember, this was crashing. It says, I don't know what to do with purchases. But we can go into this set and we can just write in line here and say, what I would like is p.price for p in this. And now we're back to our average. So I said, look, right in this little bit of code here, we're just going to do this little projection. Now let's get the average what do we want? Average baths. So here I can say baths and the average square feet. All right, now let's see what the answer is. Ooh, maybe we could round this off here. So we'll just use the round function here. So the average 2-bedroom home in Sacramento that was for sale, or actually sold in 2008, was sold for $165,000, had 1.4 baths, and the square footage of 957.2 square feet. How cool is that? All right, so this concept here is called a list comprehension, and it's really cool. It has some performance benefits and it has some performance drawbacks. You'll see that there's something extremely similar to it called a generator expression. But first, let's look at the concept of list comprehensions.